Hello again, and welcome back to the Ananya CDC podcast. In our previous episode, we explored the shadows of behaviorism, the powerful yet often painful impact of early attempts to shape autistic behavior. We heard the stories of Deborah, Skinner, and Anthony, reminding us of the human cost of prioritizing external conformity over inner experience. But as the limitations of strict behaviorism became increasingly clear, a new wave of thought began to emerge. Today, we step into that new chapter, a shift that began in the late 1970s and blossomed in the 1980s, the cognitive revolution in autism research. A journey from controlling behavior to understanding the mind, emotions, and the unique inner world of every child.
Behaviorism for decades offered a clear, if simplistic, view. If you can control the external behavior through rewards and punishments, you can reshape the individual. And as we saw, while it achieved some success in modifying behaviors, it often came at a significant emotional cost. By the late 1970s, parents, therapists, and even some researchers began to notice something crucial. Autistic children were not just collections of observable behaviors, they had inner lives, thoughts, and feelings, and a unique way of perceiving the world that behaviorism, with its focus on external stimuli, couldn't really grasp or sometimes even acknowledge.
Indeed, it became painfully obvious that while behaviorism could modify a behavior, it often ignored the emotional and cognitive costs to the individual. Families remembered moments of breakthrough, but also moments of quiet despair. A mother once told me about her son after endless drills to make eye contact would simply withdraw, his natural spark dimmed by the relentless pressure to conform. This wasn't an isolated incident, it was a growing pattern that signaled a fundamental flaw in the approach.
And so, researchers began to look beyond behavior. They asked, what if we could understand how autistic minds work, instead of simply trying to change what they do? This question marked the birth of cognitive revolution in autism research. It is a radical shift in perspective, from seeing differences as deficits to be corrected, to seeing them as variations in cognitive processing to be understood.
Andrew Frith, one of the early pioneers who helped shift the focus from external behavior to internal processes. Frith, along with the researchers like Lorna Wing, who was instrumental in popularizing the concept of the autism spectrum, introduced the concept of weak central coherence. In simpler terms, this theory suggests that autistic individuals tend to focus on the details rather than the big picture. Imagine a child who can memorize every minute detail of a train schedule, yet finds it challenging to grasp the overall narrative of a story. It wasn't a flaw.
Fritz's work was groundbreaking, but it wasn't without its critics. Some argued that weak central coherence was too broad a concept, that it didn't explain the heterogeneity of autism. Others warned that even viewing cognitive differences as deficits could lead to stigma. But the crucial point is that it opened up a new avenue of inquiry. It encouraged research and understanding. The early cognitive models were in some ways still quite simplistic. They offered a valuable framework, but they didn't capture the full complexity of the autistic experience.
Take the story of little Arjun. His parents had once been told that his inability to maintain eye contact was a problem to be fixed through strict behavioral drills. But when a new intervention team, guided by cognitive theories, began working with him, they focused on his unique strengths. They noticed his incredible memory for visual details and encouraged him to use this talent in interactive storytelling. Over time, Arjun learned to engage in conversations that honored his way of thinking. His parents finally saw him not as a problem to be corrected, but as a brilliant mind with a unique perspective. This shift from forcing conformity to fostering strengths was a direct result of the cognitive revolution.
Another giant leap in understanding came with Simon Baron Cohen's work on the theory of mind in the mid 1980s. Baron Cohen and his colleagues, including Alan Leslie, who contributed significantly to the understanding of pretense and its role in cognitive development, introduced a simple yet powerful idea. Many autistic children struggle to understand that other people have thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that differ from their own. To illustrate this, they devised what became known as the Sally Ann test.
Imagine watching a short puppet play. In the scene, Sally hides a marble in a basket and leaves the room. While she's away, another character, Annie, moves the marble to a box. When Sally returns, the child is asked, "Where will Sally look for her marble?" Typically, children say, "In the basket," because they understand that Sally did not see the marble being moved. However, many autistic children would answer, "In the box," a response that at first seemed puzzling to researchers. This simple test revealed a fundamental difference. The ability to attribute false beliefs to others was not as intuitive for some autistic children.
It is important to note that the word some, not all autistics experience a challenge understanding the theory of mind. The Sally Ann test and the theory of mind concept became hugely influential, but it also sparked debate. Some researchers argued that it oversimplified the social challenges faced by autistic individuals. They pointed out that social difficulties could stem from a variety of factors, not just a deficit in theory of mind. Others questioned whether the test itself was truly measuring theory of mind or something else, like language comprehension or working memory. Baron Cohen's work was groundbreaking because it provided a framework for understanding the social challenges faced by autistic individuals. It wasn't about teaching a child to mimic eye contact. It was about recognizing that the way they process the social world was inherently different. This theory not only reshaped research, it also had profound implications for therapy. Instead of focusing solely on compliance and correction, therapists began to explore ways to help autistic children navigate the complexities of social interaction. This is crucial. It wasn't a magic bullet. Translating theory into effective practice was a long and challenging process.
Behind these scientific breakthroughs were real people with real struggles. I remember speaking with a mother named Anjali, whose story is emblematic of this transformative period. Anjali's son, Rohan, had been through intensive behaviorist programs that forced him to make eye contact and repeat phrases until he complied. Yet, Anjali always felt something was missing, a genuine connection. When Rohan was introduced to a new, more cognitive based therapy, everything changed. For the first time, the therapist took the time to understand Rohan's interests and how he saw the world. They built on his passion for drawing and used art as a medium to express emotions. Rohan's progress wasn't measured in rote repetition, but in the way he began to communicate his thoughts through his drawings. Anjali said that it was as if someone had finally seen her child for who he really was.
These stories are a testament to the power of understanding over mere control. They remind us that autism is not simply a set of behaviors to be managed, but a different way of experiencing life, a way that holds its own brilliance and beauty. The cognitive revolution opened up a space for therapies that honored that difference, but it also presented new challenges. How do you teach someone to understand another person's perspective? How do you create interventions that are both effective and respectful of individual differences? These are the questions that therapists and researchers grappled with in the wake of these new theoretical insights.
As the 1980s progressed, these cognitive and developmental insights began to influence everyday practice. Therapies started to move away from the one size fits all behaviorist approach. Instead, new methods were emerging, approaches that were flexible, empathetic, and child led. Therapists began integrating these cognitive principles into their work, designing interventions that respected each child's unique way of processing the world. But it wasn't a smooth transition. There was a lot of trial and error, a lot of learning from mistakes.
With these changes, the goal shifted from forcing autistic children into a mold to helping them build bridges between the inner experiences and the external world. The work was not easy. It required therapists to be both scientists and compassionate listeners to adapt on the fly as they learned from child's unique responses. And while this new approach was not without its challenges or critics, it represented a profound shift in thinking, a move forward, a move towards humane, holistic understanding of autism. Early cognitive interventions often focused on specific skills, like understanding emotions or social cues. But there was a growing realization that these skills couldn't be taught in isolation. They need to be integrated into meaningful social interactions.
This was a time of both hope and reflection. Researchers and therapists alike began to acknowledge the limitations of previous methods. There was regret for the ways in which strict behaviorism had, at times, silenced the very voices it sought to shape. Yet there was also optimism, a belief that by listening to the inner lives of autistic children, a new path could be forged, one that celebrated difference rather than trying to erase it. And this growing awareness set the stage for the next evolution in autism therapy, the rise of relationship based approaches, which we will explore in our next episode.
As we wrap up this episode, we are left with a powerful takeaway. The shift from behaviorism to cognitive and developmental approaches was more than a scientific revolution. It was a human revolution. It was about recognizing that every child's mind is a universe in itself, full of potential and wonder, even if it doesn't conform to conventional expectations. But it was also a journey of ongoing learning with its own set of challenges and limitations.
In our next episode, we'll continue this journey by exploring the rise of relationship based and developmental therapies that build on these cognitive insights but also address some of their shortcomings. We'll hear more personal stories from families and practitioners who have witnessed firsthand the transformative power of therapies that focus on connection and empathy and genuine understanding. As we look toward the future of autism care, one question remains. At the heart of our discussion, how do we continue to honor the unique inner worlds of autistic individuals while helping them navigate a complex social landscape?
Thank you for joining us on this chapter of our journey. Let the stories of Arjun, Anjali, and Rohan, and the countless others remind us that progress in autism therapies is not just about changing behavior, it's about embracing and nurturing the richness of human mind. Stay with us as we continue to explore these evolving ideas, learning from the past to build a more compassionate future.
Until next time on the Ananya CDC podcast, keep questioning, keep listening, and always remember that every mind is unique and every journey matters.